Hearken, ye brave souls, to the tale of Thay, a far-off land in Farron, where magic reigns supreme and the skies burn with a fiery red hue, casting a crimson glow over the mystical land below. This land of contrasts is a place of great beauty and terror, where the air is thick with the scent of ancient spells and the whisper of forgotten incantations. The people of Thay are fierce and determined, hardened by the harshness of their land and the treachery of their rulers. They know the power of magic and how to wield it with deadly precision, for in Thay, magic is as natural as breathing. But this land is not without its darkness and evil. The rulers of Thay, the dreaded Zulkers, are powerful sorcerers who rule with an iron fist, crushing all who oppose them beneath their heels. They have created an empire of magic, a realm of sorcery and darkness that stretches from horizon to horizon, a place where the only law is the will of the Zulkers. The Zulkers are feared and revered throughout Thay, for their power is absolute and their wrath is terrible to behold. Yet, there are those who dare to stand against them, rebels and dissidents, sorcerers and warriors, all fighting for the freedom of their people and the liberation of Thay from the grasp of the Zulkers. The battles between the forces of light and darkness rage across Thay, as armies clash and spells are hurled like thunderbolts. The skies darken with smoke, and the ground trembles with the force of magic, as the fate of Thay hangs in the balance. Amidst all this chaos and conflict, adventurers and treasure seekers, explorers and thrill seekers are drawn to Thay, seeking to harness its power for their own gain. They brave the dangers of ancient ruins and forgotten tombs, hoping to find fame and fortune in the land of magic and mystery. But be warned, brave souls, Thay is a land of wonder and magic, but it is also a place of darkness and danger, where anything is possible and anything can happen. The fate of Thay is uncertain, and the battles between light and dark rage on. Long ago, in the land of Farron, there was a sect of mages known as the Red Wizards, led by the mighty Archmage Thay. These wizards were not content to live under the rule of the god-kings of Mulhorand, and so they declared their freedom and their desire for power. Their strength lay in the northern provinces, where the people did not worship the god-kings, and they soon razed the city of Delhumide to the ground, declaring themselves the free nation of Thay under the leadership of the Red Wizard Ithaz Buvar. But Mulhorand did not take kindly to this rebellion, and they successfully defended themselves against 2 invasions from Thay. However, Thay prospered nonetheless, fueled by their vast slave-driven economy and a hunger for power. A group of renegade Red Wizards, led by the ruthless Zulker Zastam, attempted a march on Rashman in 934 D.R., seeking to expand their territory, but they were met with a costly defeat at the Gorge of Gauros by the fierce witches of Rashman. Despite this setback, they continued to grow and prosper. However, the ranks of the imperialistic Red Wizards swelled too large for them to effectively govern their own people, and they fell into bickering and infighting. After years of chaos and discord, the Red Wizards decided upon a system of rule and formed the Council of Zulkers. One master of each of the 8 schools of magic had a seat on the council, and they collectively appointed the Tharkians who ruled over their given Tharch. And so, Thay became a land of ruthless ambition and magical might, ruled by the powerful and cunning Red Wizards. Their quest for power would take them to the farthest corners of Farron, and their legacy would be felt for centuries to come. But the Red Wizards were not satisfied with their power, and some of them, dissatisfied with the system of rule put in place by the Council of Zulkers, attempted to seize control of Thay during the 11th century. However, they were quickly defeated by the Zulkers in 1074 DR. Thay's armies marched on Aglarond and Rashman numerous times, and people feared that the Zulkers would mobilize again. In 1201 DR, the newly appointed Zulker of Evocation, Narvana Kren, formed a tenuous alliance with the established Zulker of Illusion Nymer Thrall and infamous Lich and Zulker of Necromancy, Zastam. They attempted an invasion of Aglarond, but the Grey Sisters repelled the Yen forces in the Uerwood. Zulker Thrall was blamed for the failure by Zastam and was suffocated by the Dark Lich, leaving a power vacuum within the Council of Zulkers. Chaos ensued as a number of lesser wizards competed for the high seat of office, and Zastam withdrew his forces to his private estate, disgusted with the behavior of his colleagues. In the year 1357 DR, the Tharkian of Lependra, Hargrid Tenslayer, joined forces with the Zulkers of Evocation and Conjuration to fulfill the most ambitious plan of conquest ever conceived in the land of Thay. With powerful magic, the trio called upon Fizzer, Lord of the Salamanders, and Grand Sultan Marrake of the Afridi within the City of Brass, to aid Thay in a brutal campaign against the independent coastal cities of the Alamber Sea and Sea of Fallen Stars. The promise of a permanent portal on Toril, connecting the prime material plane to the elemental plane of fire, was the reward for their aid. But little did they know, their plan was made without the approval or favor of Kossuth, the primordial Lord of Flame. Their original intent was to banish the elemental forces once the Zulkers seized the desired lands. However, the Red Wizards were only able to send the Afridi back to their other planar domain, and the Salamanders ravaged Priador. With the nation on the brink of destruction, the outmatched triumvirate turned to the Council of Zulkers for help, and began fighting back against the elemental reptiles. Thay's standing army, monstrous humanoids like gnolls and goblinkin, and the vast undead forces of Zastam, which had been reluctantly withdrawn from an offensive in Rashman, were all combined to wage war against the voracious Salamanders. The Salamander War lasted for over a year, and it seemed as if all was lost until Osnar Thrall made a grand appeal to Kossuth himself. The Lord of Flame sent his own elementals to Farron and drove the Salamander horde out from Thay. The worship of Kossuth grew exponentially in Thay, and the political landscape was permanently altered for decades to come. In the year 1375 DR, a great schism occurred within the Council of Zulkers of Thay, leading to the formation of two opposing factions led by Osnar Thrall and the necromantic lich Zastam. In a series of events that would alter the course of the Yen history, Tam orchestrated the assassination of his strongest ally, Druxus Rhyme, which he blamed on Thrall. Tam then supplanted Thrall as Zulker with the easily controllable Samus Kull, aided by his confidant Dmytra Flass. Tam also engineered a Rashemi counterattack on an unsanctioned invasion of Rashman, led by the Tharches Azir Kren and Homan Odessiran, and rewrote the narrative in his favor. He then manufactured the menace of an undead horde that threatened all of Eastern Thay. Tam had Thrall killed by an undead abomination in preparation for his appeal to the Council of Zulkers. However, Dmytra Flass uncovered his scheme with the assistance of her spymaster, Malark Springhill, and approached the council about her misgivings beforehand. After the entire council voted against Tam's proposal, riots broke out in the capital of Eltabar. While the Zulker of Necromancy soothed the anger of the Yen people, he withdrew from the council, marshaled his undead army, and attempted to take Thay by force. The first battle occurred on Myrtle 14, when the combined armies of the Council of Zulkers assaulted the Keep of Thazar, Zastam's fortress that had been supplied with undead from a manufactory hidden within the Sunrise Mountains. The council managed to win the battle, destroying the Nighthaunt Isval who commanded Tam's forces at the keep, and their Griffin Legion slowed the movement of the Lich's remaining undead army in the following 10 days. The two warring factions battled throughout the next decade, and Tam's forces slaughtered the Yen peasants, poisoned their lands, and caused massive floods and other natural disasters. Along with the horrors of war, famine ravaged the previously abundant lands of Thay. By 1385 DR, the warring factions of Thay arrived at a stalemate. Zastam held the northern Tharches, while the other Zulkers maintained a hold over the south. On Tarsak 29, the legions of northern Thay marched upon the Keep of Sorrows, and just before the Lich could claim victory, the goddess of magic, Mistra, was killed, and the blue flames of the spell plague ravaged Thay and all of Toril. Tam's legions took the keep, and the council forces withdrew to the isolated town of Zolam. As a result of the spell plague, the Yen Plateau rose thousands of feet in height and altered its place on the face of Toril. Rivers took new courses across the lands, and the volcanoes of Thay erupted in violent explosions, reshaping the previously controlled the Yen landscape. After a few more skirmishes fought in confusion, Zastam made a pact with the dark god Bane. In exchange for insight into the changed function and form of arcane magic, along with powers to rule over Thay for the next 1,000 years, he offered forth his soul and promised that divine worship in his kingdom would be solely dedicated to the Black Lord. Tam's greatest victory came at Thralgard Keep on Elian 15, where his legions rebuked the attack of the Council's forces. This marked the beginning of his rule over Thay. Wars and magic had ravaged the lands, waters and skies during the tumultuous end of the 14th century. A great transformation was brewing among the nation's people. As the years passed, the living people of Thay were increasingly disregarded, as the Red Wizards turned their backs on humanity and embraced a new existence as vampires, liches, and other dark creatures of undeath. The Zulkar Council, reformed in the aftermath of the Great War, was now filled with the most powerful of these undead arcanists, their sinister powers and macabre machinations known only to themselves. But fate had other plans in store for Thay, as a hero emerged from the ashes of war to uncover a grand scheme that had been brewing for over 90 years. Bereres Anskold, a brave and cunning adventurer, discovered a lost tome hidden within the ruins of the former house of Druxus Raim. The ancient book revealed the sinister designs of Zastam, the mastermind behind the machinations that had plunged Thay into darkness. With the aid of the valiant leader of the Brotherhood of the Griffin, Athfezim, Bereres embarked on a perilous journey to reveal the truth to the remaining Zulkars of Old Thay. These exiles, living in the remote reaches of the land, were the last hope of stopping the dark designs of Zastam and saving Thay from a fate worse than death. Thus began a legendary tale of heroism and sacrifice, as Bereres and Athfezim braved countless dangers and battled against the very forces of darkness themselves. Their journey took them through treacherous terrain, past ancient ruins, and into the very heart of Thay itself, where they faced off against the most powerful of the undead arcanists and their legions of undead minions. In the end, it was a battle of epic proportions, with the fate of an entire nation hanging in the balance. But through their sheer determination and unshakable courage, Bereres and Athfezim emerged victorious, and Thay was saved from the grip of darkness once and for all. And thus, their names would be remembered for all time as the greatest heroes to have ever graced the land of Thay. Thay, a land where a strict social hierarchy reigns supreme, and the Red Wizards are revered as the magocratic elite, followed by Mulan bureaucrats, priests, merchants, soldiers, and mixed Mulan Rashami artisans and craftspeople. And yet, the semi-skilled workers and common laborers are but a mere step above the enslaved masses, comprised of nearly every race within the realms. Since Zastam's rise to power in 1385 DR, the Yen people have led lives of destitution and hardship. A land whose governing philosophy extols the virtues of undeath as a preferred state of being for its people, offering boundless possibilities and immeasurable power. Alas, during most of the 15th century, the living had no hope of achieving prominence within Thay, for their very existence was deemed an affront to the beliefs of the High Regent. Amidst the misery of life in the city, many Thayans seek solace in brutal forms of entertainment. In grand arenas like Eltabar and Surthay, gladiatorial matches reign supreme, where commoners can give in to their primal nature without fear of retribution from the upper class. The most ferocious and deadly combatants are revered by the throngs of spectators, and the brutal gladiators from Thay are considered the finest and most savage in all the realms. The Mulani of Thay hold steadfast to their ancestral traditions, shaving their heads and what little body hair they have. From a young age, they are indoctrinated to honor the ways of their people, obey the laws of Thay, and respect those who serve within the Red Wizards. Unlike their Mulharandi brethren, Thayans maintain a strong connection to the art, proud to send their children to learn under experienced Red Wizards. As for the Rashemi commoners, they identify less with their cultural roots, embracing themselves first and foremost as citizens of Thay. They too shave their heads in imitation of the Mulani nobility. And yet, amidst all this, there is a shared belief among all Thayans that fortune favors the strong-willed, not the compassionate and caring. A people who seek personal power, primal fulfillment, and the acquisition of great wealth, for such is the way of Thay. In the land of Farron, Thay boasted the strongest military the East has ever seen, so mighty that it could strike fear into the hearts of even the bravest heroes. But alas, their strength is often weakened by the constant bickering and competition among their ruling class. Each Zulkar and Tharkian, hungry for power and glory, can raise their own legion, fueled by their own personal wealth and resources. Yet even with this chaotic army, the Red Wizards of Thay was always ready for battle, bolstered by fearsome magical beasts like Zulkar Maligor and his pack of darkened beasts, who fought alongside Knowles in his legion. As time passed and the 15th century dawned, Thay's armies became even more fearsome. They were comprised mainly of undead soldiers, skeletons and ghouls and boneclaws and wraiths, all commanded by the powerful necromancers of Regent Zastam. The Dread Legions are the most cunning and deadly of all, unstoppable even in the face of death and destruction. And yet, Thay's army is not solely undead. Infantry legions range from 800 to 2,000 soldiers, a diverse group made up of armored knights, human slaves, goblins, gnolls, and undead warriors. But it is their use of giant kin that sets them apart, with trolls and ogres and hill giants all marching beneath the Yen banner. And oh, how fearsome was Grumsh's legion, comprised entirely of orcs and orogs, and how the black and red neo-orogs roamed the lands of Thay. The Yen soldiers themselves are a sight to behold, clad in shining silver armor that gleamed in the sun, with white cloth slipcovers beneath to prevent overheating and reveal their positions to their enemies. Even the slaves are given spears and boots, though they were nothing compared to the elite riders of Thay's cavalry. Ah, the riders. They ride a variety of beasts, from giant cats and manticores to lucrata and hippogriffs, and if you are very unlucky, a dragon. But it is the aerial squadrons that truly set them apart, the Griffin Legion of Pyreados soaring high above, and the infamous Black Unicorn Cavalry, a regiment of all-female riders whose mere presence was enough to strike terror into the hearts of their foes. And let us not forget Thay's navy, small but oh so efficient. Based out of the island Tharch of Alir, their ships are magically aided and named after spells and wizards alike, from lightning bolt to enchanter. And leading them all was the great and terrible metallic vessel known as the Red Scourge, striking fear into the hearts of all who saw it on the horizon. In the ages past, Thay was a place of great wonder and mystique, where the towering mountains surrounding the plateau of Thay kept out all but the most daring of travelers. The Red Wizards who called it home were a suspicious lot, erecting formidable barriers to deter even the most intrepid of adventurers. But hidden within Thay's seclusion was a land of plenty, where bountiful farms and orchards flourished, nourished by the abundant flowing rivers and a deep lake filled with exotic aquatic life. Yet, among the fertile fields of Thay, there grew a most insidious plant, the yarberry, whose ripe red berries were deadly poisonous. Then, in a cataclysmic event known as the Spell Plague, the very landscape of Thay was transformed. The plateau rose thousands of feet above the rest of the world, its glaciers melting and causing great volcanic eruptions within Thaymount. In the centuries that followed, the once fertile land was reduced to a desolate wasteland of barren deserts and windswept mountains, where lifelessness prevailed. The skies over Thay were choked with ash and smoke, rising up from the volcanic peaks that dotted the landscape, casting a dark and ominous pall over the land. And so, the tale of Thay comes to a close, a land once full of life and fertility, now transformed into a foreboding and treacherous place of darkness and undeath. The Red Wizards, once the powerful and feared rulers of Thay, became twisted and corrupted by their own thirst for power and immortality, embracing the life of vampires, liches, and other servants of undeath. Their great magical prowess and the formidable barriers they erected to keep outsiders at bay only added to their mysterious and dangerous reputation. But in the end, it was the discovery of a grand scheme by the cunning Zas Tam, brought to light by the brave actions of Bereries and Skold and Athfezim, that led to the downfall of the Red Wizard's hold on Thay. Their transformation of the once fertile plateau into a wasteland of ash and smoke, a testimony to their own greed and ambition, could not hold against the forces of justice and courage. The tale of Thay will forever be remembered as a cautionary one, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the inevitable consequences of seeking immortality at any cost. But it will also be remembered for the bravery and selflessness of those who fought against the darkness, those who never lost hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. For in the end, it is not the power of magic or the strength of armies that triumphs, but the power of the adventuring spirit, the courage and resilience that reside within all of us. If you would like to hear many more tales, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe.